This is Daniel here from Screenly. We're excited to join again for another episode of the Screenly Changelog, episode 8. I'm joined here by Screenly co-founder and CEO Victor Peterson. Victor, welcome.
Hey, Daniel. Good to have you as always.
Yes. So today, as always, we're going to be covering what's been happening at Screenly and also more broadly in digital signage. Our goal here is to communicate our changes, improvements, happenings with our customers, so they know how to get the most out of Screenly digital signage. So
Right.
I think the first thing on the docket here is Screenly Anywhere. So this is a product we launched the last month or so, really got it out to a lot more users. And the goal of this is to allow people to launch digital signage with their existing hardware or really with no hardware at all. The goal here is to lower the barrier of entry so that people can get started immediately and get what they care about on their screens. So, Victor, what's the latest with Screenly Anywhere? How's it going? We launched this to a bunch of customers. What's the view from the captain's chair?
Yeah, so you kind of deliver it pretty well. So the goal with Anywhere is really just to lower the barrier to entry for Screenly, right? And Anywhere, as people may recall, is a kind of a next version of what we used to have was called virtual screens, and they were never really a good solution or good enough solution for us or for our customers. So we kind of Screenly Anywhere is a replacement from the ground up that solves for all the problems and adds a lot more functionality than we had with Screenly Anywhere, which, by the way, is we are sunsetting Screenly virtual screens by the end of this month. So if you haven't already looked at Anywhere, it's time to do so. But the real quick, like what we've done since the last episode is that we obviously launched it. We got a bunch of feedback. We've shipped quite a few updates since. And a lot of things we've added support for has to be around TVs and browsers we haven't seen before. So our goal with Anywhere is really to support most TVs, if not every TV possible. It's not possible to support everything, but we've built out our lab. So we have an office in Atlanta with our lab set up. So we've added a bunch of more TVs in there to test out various scenarios, various TVs, Samsung, LGs, and whatnot, just to make sure everything works as expected.
Right.
So that's a lot of work we've done since last recording. We found a few bugs, we added some features, and it's now pretty well supported across almost every browser out there. So there are we've run across a few TVs where the browser is super old that we haven't been able to possibly add all this functionality to. But generally speaking, the feature parity is really good across almost all browsers now. So that's what we've been up to lately with Screenly Anywhere. It's like really making sure it works in all possible scenarios and making sure the feature parity is as close as possible to the regular Screenly experience.
And so if people wanted to get started with Screenly Anywhere, how do they do that?
It's very simple. If you have a smart TV or even if you have a browser or a tablet, you just point your browser to anywhere.screenly.io and you will get a PIN code. You would use that PIN code then as you would just do with a regular TV, right? So a regular Screenly device. So you just enter in the web interface and you're off to the races. And now you can start scheduling content. It doesn't really matter if it's a Chrome OS device or if it's a Apple tablet or Android tablet. And we can talk more about Android in a second. But that's really what we spend a lot of time on, is getting it to work across as many browsers as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also it's really important from a new user perspective in the sense that people can launch a Screenly Anywhere screen during their free trial. So they don't need to buy hardware. They can just make a web browser on what they already have and start showing their digital sign. So
that's correct.
Victor, if people are using Screenly Anywhere screens and they think about, okay, well, you guys have these digital signage players, when is that switch over? When does it make sense for people to change from Screenly Anywhere screens to screens with digital signage players that are dedicated?
Well, it really depends. For many use cases, Anywhere is perfectly adequate and it will do just fine. If you have very basic use cases where maybe you have a few videos or some imagery on the slideshow. Screen Anywhere works great. There's no really need for a hardware player for many of those use cases. I would say like for a lot of use cases where a regular Screenly player is used, Screenly Anywhere can do it almost as good. There are some limitations, but
Mm-hmm.
where you really want to up your game a little bit is when you are really care about security and you really want to push down and making sure lifecycle management of that device is managed by us. So if you have a smart TV or if you just have a browser on a desktop, the onus is on you to manage the life cycle of that. So that means who's updating them, like how do you patch them, how do you take care of that entire circle, and yeah, who owns that, and because that needs to be done with a Screenly
Mm-hmm.
player or a Screenly Player Max. We take care of that, so we can ensure you that these devices are patched and against the latest vulnerabilities. We can ensure things like proper encryption on our Player Max, and those are things that we can do really well. And the other thing is like if you're using heavy dashboards, then a Player Max is a really good option. And particularly if you have dashboards that are only accessible on your local network, then in those scenarios, you would need a Screenly player because on the Screenly player and on the Player Max, we're actually rendering content locally on the device. Now, there are ups and downs with that on a player, on Screenly player particular. It's a bit resource constrained. So if you have heavy dashboards, for instance, that are only accessible on your local network, the Screenly
Mm-hmm.
player will probably not cut it, but this Player Max will. And the same goes for Anywhere. Like Anywhere cannot access web content on a local network because we offload a lot of that processing to the cloud. So if you have a resource locally, we will not be able to process that in Anywhere. So I guess those are the big parameters of why you would want to go for a dedicated player.
Yeah, and so with Screenly Anywhere and allowing people to use devices that they already have,
Mm-hmm.
it it's a bit unique in the digital signage industry because usually how these solutions are offered is it's hey, you got to get this company's stack, whether it's the software and their players, and they work together. Screenly's treating that a bit differently. So talk to me about Screenly Anywhere and Screenly's positioning as really hardware agnostic.
Yeah, I mean, we initially were of the opinion that we wanted to fully own the stack, so to speak. So we can the only way we can give a promise to a customer about security or life cycle is by virtue of having full control of that device, which meant that we only sold Screenly as a turnkey solution and like a black box, if you may, as far as the player goes.
Yes.
Yeah, well, quite literally as well. Yes, but that is the only way we could give our customers a promise that we can take care of the life cycle of this. Now, the world we live in is it's a lot more complex, and what we've seen as we've grown is that even in a single entity or a single company, there are a lot of different stakeholders and a lot of different threat models on how you see signage, and the world is complicated. And I don't think the idea of having a single vendor or a single scenario for all digital signage is as viable in 2025 as it was a few years ago. So I think in particular with the rise of smart TVs, we will see these so we'll see more like a hybrid deployment. So I think that's kind of like why we've kind of opened up to this scenario and kind of like, but we are also transparent about the cost benefit, the trade-offs with such deployment, because again, we cannot assure you that if you deploy a Samsung or LG TV or whatever other smart TV, we cannot take care of the life cycle for that device. Yeah. That's on you.
Yeah, but for the customers who do care, we do have a solution, and I think that's an important move is giving that responsibility to the customers. So really, on our end, it's the option and also the education that comes with it, saying, hey, listen, these are the possible paths you can go down, plus or minuses on both sides.
Yeah.
You pick what makes sense for your scenario, right? So
exactly.
I don't think I don't know, corner store cares super much about security, right? So
that's right.
They can just get launched with the existing screen they have and off to the races. So okay, so Screenly Anywhere, the other big thing we've been talking about is edge apps. So for those who are maybe recently joining Screenly or have had their head in the sand for the last months, just give us the top line here on what are edge apps and why should people care about them.
Yeah, so EdgeUp is our develop environment for screens, and that's something that we are dog feeding heavily ourselves by writing application for our customers. So one of the things we
Mm-hmm.
announced earlier this year was built-in customer branding in our Edge apps. So basically, if you sign up with your company to Screenly and you install our Edge apps, and I think we've refreshed all of them now, these Edge apps, be our weather app, our clock app, or any of the other apps we have, will then be branded in your brand colors and your logo automatically. And that's kind of like really harnessing the power of the Edge app environment because using all these built-in helper features. But Edge apps really allows us to build solutions for our customers without, I guess, adding extra technical depth. We can basically build
Mm-hmm.
custom applications with very little effort for our customers, and we try to do so more for more generic applications. So we have a number of these built-in ones now, and it's really, again, coming back to what we said a few times before on this podcast. It's like we see us as a platform more so than anything. Like
Mm-hmm.
we want to be like a small cog in a big wheel, so to speak. Like
Right.
the Edge app develop environment is part of that. Our API is another part of that. And then
Yeah.
we want customers to build on top of that. And we build on top of ourselves.
Right. Right. And I think developers who are getting the most out of edge apps, maybe they've gotten a request from other departments in their business and hey,
Yeah.
spin this thing up, integrate these things, and then kind of smuggled in there is like, also, by the way, figure out all the, you know, audio visual,
Yeah.
details that the requester kind of thinks like are just, yeah, figure it out, but that's
I
not,
mean,
they're
hey,
not
listen,
easy.
like, yeah, like the thing is, like with digital signage, what you often hear is like, oh, how hard can it be, right? It's like, oh, I can throw up a browser on any device and write some web application, run there. And that's
Mm-hmm.
true. One, you have like when you're doing a proof of concept with like one screen, the problems start to happen when you start to scale this, right? And you have hundreds of thousands of screens. That's when like you really start to run into like, how do you actually
Yeah.
manage to run this at scale? And this is kind of like where we try to make the best of both worlds. We try to make it easier to do
Mm-hmm.
prototyping with our edge of environments. You can
Yeah.
using our CLI, you can build these applications locally and test them, and then you can deploy them. And you can just deploy the same code base as you have, and using a modern CI/CD pipeline, you can push these applications to your environment. And it doesn't matter if you have one
Yeah.
screen or 100 screen or 1,000 screens. The workflow is the same, and that's kind of like
Right.
that's really we try to do it, make it a win-win. It's easier to develop before than try
Mm-hmm.
to do it yourself. But also, once you've done it, scaling it is easy part. Like you just add more screens and we'll take care of all the heavy lifting for you. That's kind of like that's the beauty of
Yeah.
the platform.
Yeah, I think too with digital signs, like part of a unique feature of their nature is that obviously they're meant to be seen,
Mm.
and the what that brings is that mistakes are just super visible, right? And
Yeah.
like so
Yeah.
everyone sees them, and they're just these broadcasting things of like, hey, someone made a mistake, and idiot alert to this person, right? And so
Yeah.
it's not something that someone wants to deal with when really they should be in the weeds of, hey, how are they integrating their business systems data and
Yeah.
dealing with the person component of like, where is that useful, like what other things need to be shown for the screen to also be engaging. So there's a lot more
That's right.
that comes to it, and hopefully we can take care of some
Yeah.
of the details that you really shouldn't be concerned about.
That sums it in, right? Like where you as a developer for
Mm-hmm.
screen content should be focusing on is building the custom thing that makes your use case special, like
Yeah.
extracting the right data from the right system, rendering that on a screen, and like that's really what your unique value lives, right? Not
Yeah.
in reinventing the wheel and building another signage provider, right? Even though that's how a lot of engineers look at the problem, like how hard can it be? But then
Right.
we've had a lot of customers coming to us after they've done that, and they're like, "Oh crap! Now I have something that works, but I can't really scale this any further. Like I'm having a problem at
Yeah.
scale."
Yeah. And so with with this like sandbox apps that we've made that are ready to go out of the box, but also developers can change them at line
Yeah.
by line at the code level. A lot of that work so far has been stuff that customers are intended to see. So, for example, like our countdown app or a simple message app or our Power BI
Yeah.
app, right? These are things for customers to see.
Yes.
Recently, we made a change that is an Edge app that's useful for the actual sign operators to see. So,
Yeah, that's right.
kind of an interesting category. So, Victor, maybe talk about that. Uh, what's our latest Edge app, and who is it useful to? Why is it important?
Yeah, so it's called a metadata edge app, and it's actually we wrote it a long time ago using a pre-edge app develop environment, and basically we've now updated to use the new methodologies and new framework, and it really is. It's almost like considering a demo app, right? Because it basically visualizes what's accessible under the hood when you're writing an edge app. So it shows you things like where is the screen located on the screen. It shows you what the name of the screen is, and all these metadata that's accessible inside a development environment. We've exposed and show them visually to the customer on this application. So the metadata application is available on our playground on GitHub, but it's not so much designed for edge end users as to your point. It's more a demo application, but it's also handy for some debugging, right? So if you throw that in, you can actually learn more about the actual screen you're showing there, right? So that's
Yeah.
really what it is. It's not super useful as an end user, but it basically showcases some of the capabilities of our edge app environment.
Right. Right. Nice. And so, another thing we've been working on and continue to improve are, so basically these edge apps, right? It is a developer environment. You can start from zero, but we want to have these kind of boilerplate solutions to get started.
That's right.
Part of that getting started too is making sure that the edge app looks like it belongs in your company. And so
Yes.
we've been working on allowing our edge apps to be more easily branded. So,
Yeah, that's right.
Victor, what's our latest work on branded edge apps?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, like we've want to make them look native to our customers, right? So when you sign up for an account, we basically can figure out what your customer branding looks like and your logo looks like using some magic, and that's all exposed as metadata to your edge app, right? So like I mentioned, if you install the clock app, it will have your logo on there. It will have your colors on there, assuming you have a relatively known company, right? We can't make it. If you started the company yesterday, we'll not have anything about for you. But if it's in the public domain, we'll figure it out. And that's really intended for developers to be able to piggyback on, right? So that if you're walking into a lobby of a company and you just install our messaging app, for instance, and you say greeting visitor blah, and you just install that, it should look like something that came out of your marketing department. And that's really the goal. But it's really like, again, all these playground apps are just to illustrate what you can do with the platform. It's not necessarily the end goal of the platform. Well, it's not the goal of the app is not necessarily to be there. It's basically like showing you what you can do with that, and then you can do even more with that. So that's kind of the goal with that.
Yeah, and I think that was a really important, pillar level architecture decision of edge apps, and what really brought that forward. Because so often, I mean, even from like the sales side, right? We'd have these questions of, oh well, who do you integrate with, and what are your integrations? And there's like this weird fixation on the word integrating, meaning like you can do everything and exactly what I want.
Yeah.
And it's quite literally never the case. So people will go around, shopping all these integrations and different signage platforms and kind of cost benefit weighing what they have in this. And it's always every time a compromise on exactly what they want. And, so we essentially said, hey, we're just not going to do that. We're going to go a different route. So
yeah, I mean, integration is it's such a loaded word, right? Because it means a billion things to billion people, right? If you ask me what an integration looks like, it's going to look very different than if you ask somebody in marketing what an integration looks like, right? And very much to your point, people look for like a logo wall under integrations on a website, and they're like, oh, it integrates with blah. Okay, because it integrated blah, it can do blah. But those are just assumptions, but they're rarely true, right? Just because you don't integrate with, I don't know, Google Drive or whatever, Dropbox, it doesn't mean that it can do exactly what you anticipate in your head. But it's
exactly.
enough for people to like draw conclusions, right? And that's
Right.
dangerous.
Yeah. So we're trying to have like a hybrid thing where we have the quote unquote integration for just the window shopper looking. Like we also need to have that logo wall as
Yes, of
well.
course.
But we don't want it to end there and limit their choice to what we decide is important, right? So we want to give them
Yeah.
something to start with, and then open that up and say, hey, by the way, we want you to play with this and tweak it, right? Like it's all
Yes.
open source. Open it up, make it yours,
Yes.
right? Make it
Yeah,
better.
exactly. Exactly. And like figure out, tweak it for your use case, right? These are
Yeah.
just some we can think about. Like you can think of other things that solves your business needs, but that's really what it's about. Helping you
Exactly.
solve business needs.
Yeah. So, talking of like customer, experiences and requests, one thing that we we'd heard for years, we made some strides in it. Was our PDF support,
Yes.
and we took that a lot more seriously, maybe like 6 months ago, plus or minus. And we've been continually improving that.
Yeah.
What's kind of the typical customer experience that you've been hearing about, Victor, where it's like people are sent PDFs and it said, I want this on a screen, right?
Yeah. I mean, from the start, I was always reluctant to even add support for PDF because PDFs were never designed for screens, right?
No, not
So
at all.
PDFs are literally designed for printing out on paper, and
Mm-hmm.
the file format is designed for paper format, which means that also, like generally speaking, they are in either A4 or US letter format, which
Yes.
does not match the resolution of a screen, right? That's the first problem. Now, sometimes we need to be a bit pragmatic. So some time ago, a few years ago, we added PDF support, but kind of like in a much like virtual screen, in a kind of like subpar way that we were never really happy with.
Right. We wanted to get out the door, and we did it, but maybe
Yeah,
too fast.
and users did like it, and people did use it, or I wouldn't say like it. People used it. I don't say people loved it because it didn't actually meet our standard of quality, but
Mm-hmm.
that behind the scenes, what that did was basically take a PDF that you uploaded and spit it out to images. And the problem with that is, by definition, a PDF is vector based, so it's basically it has no resolution. Well, it kind of does, but not really. But it means it can scale up and down.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that means that a PDF. Well, first of all, a PDF is rarely a single page. A PDF can have hundreds of pages, and that means when you're uploading that, what do you actually want to show on the screen? So it's a completely different entity than uploading an image from a workflow perspective. So what we really wanted to do was to actually use the PDF customers upload on the device so that we can render that in the proper resolution and then just show the page people are asking in the right portrait or landscape mode, which means that if you have 5 pages that you want to show on a single PDF, we only need to ship you the PDF once, and then we can just basically show the pages from the PDF natively based on that what you provide. So the old approach was to upload it, chuck it all into images, and then schedule those images to assets. But it was kind of an awkward flow. So we went back to the drawing board and properly added support for PDFs. So when you upload a PDF, it stays a PDF. And then what you do instead is you say, okay, I've uploaded a PDF. It's rare from there that you say, show me every single page of that PDF. Like if it's a report or whatever, right? Like it's not, that's not how people use it, right? So it's just bloat. In the previous integration, that would create a folder and you will have a bunch of files in there. And it's just like, it's hard to manage because like the probability that you are even interested in all the 100 pages that a PDF has is very unrealistic, right? It's like maybe a handful of or graphics in a PDF that you actually want to show, right? So what we did instead was that we said, okay, let's upload a PDF. And then you say, these are actually the 5 pages of this 100-page PDF we're interested in. So then you go into that PDF and you say, these are the 5 pages I'm interested in portrait landscape mode, because that obviously might not be consistent. It might be one that's portrait, one that's landscape. Once you've done that, that becomes a real asset. And now what happens behind the scenes is that the actual player pulls that down, the whole PDF, and then we just point to a given page in there. So we display the PDF natively. And that's the big difference, because now we're not messing around with your files. We're actually saying, I'm going to show the file that you actually uploaded in the right portrait or landscape mode, or rotate it however you want it. And that's it. So like, this is how we should have done from the start. We just took a few shortcuts in the early days, but now we've actually
Yeah.
gone back and fixed it up. So it works like it
Yeah.
should work.
Yeah. So if you need a display PDFs, Screenly's the place to do it. And
That's right.
yeah, all those details, like just showing particular pages, dealing with the screen rotation issues, sizing. It's a lot behind the scenes, and but right now you can just chuck a PDF on there and display what you want, and that's really our goal with variety of formats. So
simplicity.
Yeah. So one thing we've also recently launched is our Zapier integration.
That's right.
I think it's really in the same family, of line of thinking as our Edge apps, right? Where we want people to be able to display and trigger content from really whatever they use, right? We don't want to be the ones prescribing how they do it. We want to be the enablers that allow them to have the choice to think of every weird use case that we definitely can't think of because we're not in their business. So
that's right.
One of those the first forays into that is with our Zapier integration. So Victor, we launched the Zapier integration. What should people know about it?
Yeah, so the Zapier integration is really just a simple user interface on top of our API, right? That's really all there is to it. And then Zapier acts as an API agent to our API, and then you can use many of the predefined integrations Zapier already has. I believe we have a Box, we have Drive, Google Drive, we have Dropbox, and what that allows you to do is basically say, for instance, if somebody drops a file into this Google Drive folder, have Screenly pick that up and upload as an asset, right? So you can have almost an entire workflow built out, and you can even hook it up to playlists, I believe now. So you can basically say, you can basically manage your content from Google Drive or from Dropbox or from Box, right? And you can you can create a folder. It says Screenly content, and whenever somebody drags something in there, Screenly will pick that up, add it to your screens. So you don't even have to touch the Screenly interface. You could have completely different permission models for the Screenly interface as well.
Yeah, and I think it's really useful because it broadens the surface area of who's able to interact with the screens. And you can imagine like an environment where there's an IT team, and then everyone else in the organization maybe isn't super technical. So think of like maybe a K through 12 school, right? And IT sets up all these screens, and okay, the campus is going digital. It looks really great, but hey, you also still want the music teacher, for example, to upload the latest performances or performance schedules, and you don't necessarily want them to have to deal with learning a new interface, getting passwords, and all that stuff.
Not even that. You might not want them there for security reasons, even as well, right? You might actually you don't want them to mess around with the screens, right?
Right. Yeah. You don't want anyone to fat finger some disaster too. So
yes.
Yeah, and so what this allows is just quite simply, hey, maybe it's a Google, organization, drop this file into a folder whenever you want, and change them as you go, and that changes the content on the digital site. So
that's right.
Yeah, so it's really exciting. We've published some tutorials on our YouTube channel for how to do that with our Zapier integration, Box, Drive, and Google Drive, and also Dropbox. So if you're looking to try these new workflows and our Zapier integration with your digital signs, go on over to our YouTube channel. We show you step by step how to do that, and they're live, and you can use them today. So,
and big shout out there, Daily, you're working on overhauling a lot of our tutorials and documentation as we speak. So keep an eye out on our YouTube channel. There will be a lot of new content there. It was stale for a while, but now we're making a big push to resurrect that and resurrecting all the tutorials as well.
That's right. We are deciding to show you guys that we are real people, and Screenly is an organization of humans, and
Yes,
yeah, sometimes a video is just easier to digest than a
that's right.
big step by step. So yeah, and on that note, so we also have a few tutorials on how to display dashboards from popular dashboarding softwares. So
Yeah,
we have one on there for funnel.io, which really has basically any marketing tool you can think of. If you have data you want to display from it, go through funnel.io and then push that data to Screenly. Also, agency analytics and report garden. We have tutorials for each of those on our YouTube channel. So check it out. Showing
good
data
stuff.
dashboards is a really common use case for digital signs.
Mm.
If you have, if you have a bunch of data and you're collecting it, it was a ton of work for somebody to make that happen. And then sadly, what happens in a lot of organizations is that data just sits there. No
Yes,
one sees it, no one acts on it, and you have all these reports for what. So, really as like a first pass, just put it up there, have everyone see the numbers. Everyone's going to have comments about it, and yeah, there you go. So
that's right.
um, cool. So a couple more items on our docket here that we'll run through. Going to be wrapping this episode up shortly, but let's talk about our browser extension. So
Yeah.
the Screenly browser extension, we've had different versions of that. What's the latest that people should know?
Yeah, we've done a lot of cleaning up and improvements of the browser extension. As we mentioned last time, it's available at Chrome and for Firefox now. And the latest updates has a bunch of bug fixes and improvements behind the scenes. It deals with some bug fixes around, like if you have multiple teams, how do you juggle them and so on, right? So that was one of the things that it fixed there. But I think we often forget about the browser extension, the power of the browser extension, how that actually works. And just to recap for the audience, the Screenly browser extension was really built for as a vehicle for a device to access something behind a login page, right? So
Right.
we've covered that many times before on this podcast. Like login is a very complicated topic, and there are numerous ways to do it. And there is it's hard to create a universal solution for this. We have done some with Edge apps and some more sophisticated solutions for this, but for the average user, it's complicated to say the least. And
For sure.
so the browser extension is like a lowest common denominator. So behind the scenes, what it really does is that you log in on your local browser, and then using the browser extension, we copy what's called the cookie or the session cookie to the backend, which means that all of a sudden our device or the Screenly device can now act as you and basically take on your logged in session and basically act. So like it bypasses the login because it thinks that it's you. Now,
Yeah.
in many scenarios, the session only lasts ranging from hours to days to months, depending on the security configuration of said dashboard or said software. But with the browser extension, it makes it easy to rotate this as well. So when your token expires or your session expires, all you need to do is re-log in again, press the update asset button in the browser extension, and we'll ship that. And you don't really need to do anything else on the Screenly side. The players will pick this up and just continue as and humming on along as it did before. So I think that's it's important to note that like this can even work for internal assets, right? So if you have a local dashboard on your local network and you have a Screenly device on your local network, none of it is public exposed to the internet, you can still use the browser extension because you're on the browser, you're on the local network. You can use the browser extension and send that to the devices that have this asset scheduled, and then the browsers can access it. Like we can't access it from the outside, of course, but that's fine. We don't need to because the browser is running on the local device, so it can do access these dashboards. So I think that's an important distinction.
And I think too with like authentication, if you're looking for these solutions where like you sort it out once and you never have to sort it out again, you're really not going to find that. There's going to have to be some intervention at some point, unless it's a really deeply made integration. And so what the what our browser extension allows is that we we systematize that interaction. So it's really
Mm.
as easy as it possibly can for you
Yes,
to, when you have to intervene, okay, it's not some big process you have to spend half a day doing.
that's right. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like it is possible to solve it in not in every possible scenario, because some systems will not allow you to do anything other than log in using either
Yeah.
single sign on or username and password. And those scenarios, there are JavaScript injection we support, and some other providers do something similar, which is kind of like a common way of doing it in the industry. But this is kind of like a more elegant solution
Mm-hmm.
rather than having to hand over your username and password to a
Right.
system, right?
Yeah, exactly. So cool. And let's also cover quickly our Android app. So
Yeah.
um, part of our push into, again, allowing people to use what they want to power and run their digital signs um, are Android devices, right? Like that's a huge, probably the biggest market segment there is.
Yes.
And yeah, so Victor, what's the Screenly Android app, and how does that allow people to run their digital signs?
Yeah. So Android is obviously a major player in the smart TV world, particular.
Yes.
And as we were kind of embarking on this mission with Screen Anywhere and being able to leverage what people already got at their disposal, um, Android was just a natural extension of this. So by the time you're watching this, the Android app should already be live in the Android App Store and or the Play Store rather. So you can just download it and install it on your smart TV or on your phone or tablet for that sake. But it's largely intended for smart TVs. And we tested this on a bunch of different smart TVs on devices. And obviously, it's our first release, so there will be issues, but we are eager to square those out as soon as possible. But
Mm-hmm.
it's big. Like we think this is a really big play, and there's more where that's coming from. Like we want to branch out further into other platforms, but and making Screenly available on all the various platforms that people are already playing.
Yeah, yeah. So we'll have more on that shortly, but I wanted to make sure our audience
Yes.
is aware of that and looking out for it. So cool. And so we started the episode talking about no hardware, so only natural that we're going to end it talking about new hardware.
Yeah.
So we have, again, we have a solution where you can use just your existing uh, computer and browser, which we call no hardware. Obviously, it's
Yeah.
something, or any other hardware you have to launch your digital sign right now. But still, a huge part of our business is managing these digital signage players that allow
Correct.
you to have a lot more control over how your digital signs run. So, one announcement is we are launching new hardware. Victor, what
Yeah.
are we launching?
So I'm not going into the exact details yet, but there is a refresh coming on the Screenly Max player that we will be announcing in the coming weeks. It should be
Yes.
available. So we are doing some file testing now with a new provider, and I'm super excited personally about this. People people have been around in the tech world for a while will most likely know this provider, and yeah, I'm super excited. I don't want to go into too many details yet, but
Yeah.
it's something that I am very excited about myself, and I have a lot of respect for this company. And yeah, it's going to be a big step up for our Max player, both from security perspective and performance perspective, and all around really. Like I'm very very bullish on this and very excited about this. So watch this
And for
channel,
people,
hopefully soon.
that's right. And for people who don't know, so we have the Screenly Player and the Screenly Player Max.
Correct.
What are the key differences and like proper use cases for each of those? Why do we have
Yeah.
two?
So the Screenly player is kind of, as we mentioned before, our entry level player, right? It's kind of like it's very similar in many ways to. I wouldn't say similar, but it's great for very basic use cases for the Screenly player, right? If you have some basic images and some basic video content, even in 4K, right? That's fine. You can play that. It can do some of those content. Now, it's not as reliable. Like if you're deploying this in a mission critical environment, We would never
Mm.
recommend using a Screenly player. We would always recommend Screenly Player Max. And the Screenly, from a tech perspective, the Screenly Player is based on the Raspberry Pi. And the Screenly Player Max is based on an x86 board, and it's order of magnitude faster, right? And actually not that much more expensive. And it's so it's about, I think it's about, just back of the envelope, like 30% more expensive or 50% more expensive maybe. But it's much more performant. It has a lot more security features, and it's just a solid device all around. All around. So that's great for using dashboards or rendering heavy dashboards on the device, and it's a much more secure device, better life cycle, more longer expected life cycle as well. Like we expect to live longer, because
Yeah.
some things with the Pi will just not last for that long, unfortunately. So it has better storage, faster storage, and yeah, it's just a more solid device all around.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. So, yeah, so we have those options out there: Screenly Anywhere, Screenly Player, Screenly Player Max. Need one of them per screen.
And
So
maybe more soon.
that's right. Well, keep stay tuned. So, yeah, I think that wraps it up for today. So, everyone,
Yeah.
thanks again for joining us. Again, we are making a real push here to communicate all the different things going on at Screenly. We got a lot going on, and we need our customers and followers to know about it, so they can get the most out of our product offering and digital science. So,
That's right.
yeah. So again, thanks for joining us with the Screenly Changelog, and we'll see you on the next one. So signing out.
Amazing.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Daniel. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.